Well, good morning, Cypress. Good morning. It's always good to see you all. I know there's probably a few here with us or maybe a few watching online who I haven't had a chance to meet yet. So just in case, I do want to introduce myself. My name is Eric. I'm the new pastor on staff. If you've been around Cypress for the past few months, through our transition, my family's transition down here, you might already know this, but when we moved, Amanda and I and our family, we left our two young adult children, our two young adult daughters, up in Indiana. And, so our oldest, Brianna, is a third-year nursing student at a school up north, and she's also engaged to be married to a guy who's up north, and so we figured as much as we would love to have her down here with us, she's probably going to stay up there. But then our second daughter, Sophia, is an artist, and she's been pursuing an apprenticeship to become a tattoo artist. And so all right. We're all awake? Okay, good. Awesome. So anyway, as I was saying, she's been pursuing an apprenticeship to become a tattoo artist. Her original plan was to do that up north, but then she discovered a great opportunity to be an apprentice at a shop down here in Newport Richey, as a matter of fact. And that's where she is right now. Her apprenticeship starts today, as a matter of fact. So yeah, we're excited about that. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. But so 2 weeks ago, I made the trip up north, kind of my own little Operation Get Sophie. And so I wanted to, plan this whole thing out because I wanted to try to squeeze in this little trip up there to make it so that I didn't have to miss any time in the office here. And also I could be back in time for our services on Sunday morning. And so I had this whole thing planned out. I found an early flight out of St. Pete on that Friday morning, which meant that I had to get up at like 4:30 a.m. But then I landed in Fort Wayne at about 9:30. Went to get my rental pickup truck. Had a few little snags with that. I'm going to save that story for another time. But anyway, was able to get Sophie all loaded up, got her car all loaded up, got her two friends that she was bringing with her just for the week, got them all loaded up, and then we headed south. And went 2.5 hours, got to Indianapolis, stayed the night with my parents down there, or I guess up there. And then anyway, at 4:15 a.m. on that Saturday morning, we left my parents' driveway. And then at 8:25 p.m., we pulled into our driveway. And so, yeah, that was like a whiplash of a trip up to Indiana and back in 2 days. So like 2,200 miles traveled, 2.5 hours in the air, 18.5 hours on the ground, on very little sleep, and a lot of coffee. And we made it safely. And so that was the main thing. But man, that was something that was obviously very important to Amanda and I. Right? Like any of you, we would move heaven and earth to have our kids with us. And so, it was worth it. Absolutely worth it. But it took a toll on me, especially. I think it sent me back like 2 weeks with the amount of sleep that I lost. And then, my body ached for a solid 2 days just from all of the time spent in the truck. But man, it was worth it. But here's why I share all that with you. Because again, we're excited to have Sophie down here. I wanted to share that little update with you. But as I thought about this, I thought, man, as crazy and extreme and exhausting as that experience was, isn't that kind of just what life feels like sometimes? Isn't that just kind of how we like to live our lives, or whether we like it or not, that's just kind of what ends up happening. We try to cram as much as we can into the limited amount of time that we have within the scope of a day or a week or a lifetime. In an article that was published in the Wall Street Journal, the author was reflecting on this very thing, and this is what she writes. This is just in the opening paragraph here. She says, "Lately, I can't stop running the numbers on my life. I calculate the hours I spend with my kids. I tally the nights I work late. I program my phone to monitor my minutes on social media and then inevitably blow past the limit I set for myself. On a recent perfect spring day," she continued, "I pried myself away from my computer for a run and passing the elementary school my oldest child will attend in a few months, watching moms and dads stream out the door holding little hands, all I could think was, am I using my time right?" And then she goes on, she interviews this source later in the article who just cuts right to the heart of it with this question. Are you doing what matters? It's a great question, challenging question. Are you doing what matters? You've probably heard it said before that you can tell what really matters to someone by looking at two things, right? How you spend your money and how you spend your time. Now, the money issue is a whole other teaching in the Recalibrate series, and I'm going to let Pastor Douglas tackle that one at a later time. That one's coming soon. But this morning, I really just want to zero in on this issue of how we spend our time. This time issue, because how we spend our time reveals what truly matters to us or doesn't matter to us. Here's an example of that. I can say that being physically fit matters to me. But if you just did a quick study of the amount of time that I've actually spent exercising over the last year, you would come to the conclusion that being physically fit really doesn't matter all that much to Eric. Okay? Nowadays, I mean, if I just get some extended time walking, that counts. I mean, that's the extent of the exercise that I get these days. But here's what my time spent would reveal about me in terms of what apparently matters to me. Okay? And I'm just going to be very open with you and transparent with you, so please keep this between us. All right? I'm not proud of this. But here it is. Watching movies and TV. All right? Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, okay? Watching TV and movies is not necessarily a bad thing, but I just know for me, personally, if I'm not careful, I can spend way too much time in front of my TV. So what I've done the past year and a half or so to try to balance this is I've kind of challenged myself, okay, if I want to watch an hour of TV, I just need to, before I do that, I just need to read, spend equal amount of time reading a thought-provoking book or something like that. And that's helped. But then sometimes I just go straight to the TV and turn on the subtitles, and I count it as both. Here's another thing. And again, please keep this between us. I'm really not, this is like a confessional this morning. It's social media. Social media, I think maybe all of us could put ourselves in this category. And if you're my friend on Facebook, I apologize because I'm not very active on Facebook, but I can get totally lost in a scroll through Instagram Reels for hours. Yeah, thank you. I see some nodding heads. For me, I'm a sucker for those fail videos where people hurt themselves in hilarious ways. And I laugh hysterically. I don't know what that says about me, watching people hurt themselves, and I crack up laughing. Or if it's not one of those, it's usually a funny or cute animal video, like a puppy or something like that, a little chihuahua. I have a soft spot for chihuahuas, apparently. But anyway, so here's the thing about me, though. If it's a particularly funny video, not only do I just receive joy from the laughter that happens when I watch these, but I want to pass it on. I want to share the blessing. So I forward these videos to Amanda and my kids. I'm becoming that person that just forwards things now. But, and it's funny because my oldest daughter, Brianna, just texted me a few days ago, actually, and she said, Dad, I just want to give you the heads up that I've deleted Instagram from my phone. So just so you know, you won't get any responses from me with those videos you like to share. And I don't know how much I had to do with that decision, but I told her it's probably a wise move because I think we probably all spend a little too much time on social media. But here's another struggle that I have with how I spend my time. In my enthusiasm and zeal for life, otherwise known as FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, I have said yes to things that I should have said no to. Right? And it could have been something on our social calendar. It could have been a travel opportunity. It could have been even a ministry opportunity. Or just something that sounded fun. I have said yes to some things. In fact, a lot of things that I should have said no to. Because, in the moment it seemed like something important or seemed like it was something that mattered. But then I realized after the fact that it actually kept me from other things that mattered more. And then I learned this age-old principle, right, that I'm sure you already know, that when I say yes to one thing, I'm actually saying no to 1,000 other things. And sometimes we have to say no to good things so we can say yes to the best things. The problem for some of us is that we're just not great at saying no. And sometimes it's a struggle to know what we should even say no to, because in the moment, so many things can seem important and seem like they matter, and we end up trying to live our lives like everything matters. I mean, the house has to be clean. We have to be at every school function. We have to take every call. We have to respond to every text. The yard and the landscaping have to be tended to. We can't turn down an invitation to coffee. We can't miss that get-together. We have to attend every game for every kid in every sport. We have to be at every parent meeting. We wouldn't miss that family gathering. We have to arrive early. We have to stay late. We have to meet up with some people afterward. We have to grab a few things on the way home. We have a few emails that we have to catch up on, an episode or 2 or 3 to watch so we can stay current with that TV show. We have some scrolling that we're hoping to do at the end of the day, and at some point we're hoping to get some sleep. I'm exhausted just reading that. Let me ask you, when somebody asks you how you're doing, how's life, how are things going, what is your typical response? Good. Busy. Thanks, Jackie. That's what I typically say. It's like the go-to. Hey, in fact, I'll say something like this. Busy as usual, right? I had 2 friends who reached out to me just this past week. We were texting back and forth, and I asked them that question, how are things going? Busy. Busy. We're all busy. We're hurrying from one thing to the next as if everything matters. But here's the reality, and I think you probably know this already, that when we try to live like everything matters, really nothing matters. When everything matters, nothing does. And good things end up edging out the best things from our lives. So my concern for me and for my family and really for all of us as a church is that we're living at such a pace, and we've allowed more and more commitments and pressures and distractions and exhaustion to come into our lives, and we're being pulled further and further from the things that truly matter in our lives. Maybe for some of us, it's time to reevaluate our priorities or reevaluate our values. In other words, it might be time to recalibrate what matters. And that means that we will have to radically reorder our lives because good intentions are not going to get us there. We've been saying from the very first week in this Recalibrate series that direction, not intention, determines destination. A few years ago, I was on staff. I was one of the pastors on staff at a church up north, and my particular area of responsibility during that time was to oversee all of our creative and storytelling and communications. And so I used to challenge my team and really our entire staff with this motto, and you've heard it before: less is more, right? Less is more. The idea behind that, of course, is that we can be more effective if we're doing less or even saying less sometimes. And so I want to suggest to you this morning that oftentimes less is more in our lives as well. Because when we're less distracted, we can be more present in the moment. We need to choose less of what doesn't matter so we can experience more of what does matter. And I don't know about you, but I want to live a less is more kind of life. And recalibrating what matters means learning to say yes to less and no to more. There's a beautiful scene that's captured for us in the scriptures where we see this principle at work. It's found in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. If you have a Bible app, feel free to turn there if you'd like. It's on the screens, and I'm going to read it for us. Here it is. As Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Now, just a quick pause here for some insight. Actually, Jesus is very close personal friends with Martha and her sister Mary and their brother Lazarus, right? So if you read through, the Bible is really divided into 2, what we call Old Testament, New Testament. First 4 books of the New Testament is what we call the Gospels. And so if you just read through those Gospels, you're going to see Mary, Martha, and Lazarus come up a few times. And so there's already this friendship, there's this deep relationship and connection that's already there, and that's why Martha's opening her home to Jesus. And we're actually going to see this familiarity come through in what happens next. So here's verse 39. She, that's Martha, had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. She came to him and asked, "Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me." So again, I think right away, probably a lot of us, we identify with Martha. right? Maybe we're even quick to jump to her defense because, there's a part of us that's like, yeah, why should Martha be doing all the work while Mary is just lounging around like she's royalty or something, and this is just so typical, right? And maybe we've all been in a situation like that where it just feels like we're the only ones doing any of the work. No one else around us is carrying their weight. And so right away we resonate with, we identify with Martha's frustration in this moment. But here's Jesus' response in 41. He says, "Martha, Martha," the Lord answered. Isn't it interesting that he repeats her name? I kind of wonder if she was just that worked up, like she was that upset. It was like, "Martha, Martha, calm down, relax." Jesus would never say that, right? That is the wrong thing to say in a situation. Trust me, Jesus would never say that. Here's what he said. He said, "You are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Indeed, only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her." You know what Jesus is saying here? He's saying, Martha, less is more. Less is more. But Martha was serving Jesus, right? She was doing good things, even necessary things from her perspective. But in the midst of all of her busyness doing for Jesus, Martha was missing the moment with Jesus. And Jesus very gently recalibrates her priorities. He tells Martha, "Listen, you're all worked up over all these things, but does it really matter if the meal gets delayed? So what if the house hasn't been tidied up and there's dirty dishes in the sink and is it really that big of a deal? Does it really matter? Does it really matter if all these preparations that are distracting you right now get put off for just a moment? What's the worst that could happen?" Because in this moment, Jesus said, only one thing really matters, and Mary has chosen it. Less is more. Mary was doing less, but she was experiencing so much more. She was less productive, but more alive. She hustled less, but accomplished more. Mary was less distracted so she could focus more on what really mattered. Mary said no to more so she could actually say yes to less, and it liberated her to slow down. In fact, she could just be still with Jesus, sitting at the teacher's feet and soaking in his every word. Like Martha, we can be in such a hurry that we miss Jesus even while we're trying to serve Jesus. And the challenge for us, as has been just beautifully said, is to be a Mary in a Martha world. Be a Mary in a Martha world. Say yes to less and no to more. I came across a story in a book that I read recently while I was trying to earn some TV time and learning some things in the process. But I learned this story about an author, a pastor, a guy that I've actually followed for several years now, read a few of his books. And the story is about him during a time in his life when he was on staff as a teaching pastor at a very large and well-known church up in the Midwest. And he says that, the pace of life and ministry had just gotten to a point that was just unhealthy and unsustainable. So he had reached out to his mentor. And his mentor is a guy named Dallas Willard, who many of you have probably heard of Dallas Willard, a very well-known Christian philosopher and teacher and writer. And he asked Dallas Willard, his mentor, this question. He said, "What do I need to do to be the me I want to be?" Which is a great question. As a matter of fact, this pastor sometime later actually wrote a book called The Me I Want to Be. But anyway, this was Dallas Willard's response. He said, "Hurry is the great enemy of spiritual life in our day. You must ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." And this guy's writing stuff down, and he's like, "Okay, great, what's next?" And Willard's like, "There is nothing else. Just ruthlessly eliminate hurry from your life." And years after that conversation took place, here's what this pastor wrote. He said, "The good of being delivered from hurry is not simply pleasure, but the ability to do calmly and effectively, with strength and joy, that which really matters." I think most of us, when we hear this, we're challenged by this, and I think we encounter this idea that we have to somehow ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives, and that can be both hopeful and also hopeless at the same time. right? Because I think we hear that and we think about that and we think, oh man, wouldn't that be nice? Oh, I need that. I so desperately want to get to that place where I can just eliminate hurry from my life. Wouldn't that be amazing? But at the same time, it's like, okay, but I don't even know where to begin or what I can begin to cut back without this whole thing crashing down. And I get that. I mean, I resonate with that. But I want us to just envision this together this morning. What would it look like if we just started to say yes to less and no to more? What would it look like if we started to recalibrate what matters and stop trying to live like everything matters? Because again, when everything matters, nothing does. And trying to live that way is the recipe for hurry that will exhaust us and keep us from experiencing the full and abundant life of Jesus. I believe that all of us, deep down on some level, we want to be free from the tyranny of hurry. And here's where it starts. It starts with a simple habit. In fact, I would call it a keystone habit, that if we can just cultivate this habit into the rhythm of our daily lives, then it will begin to reorder our lives in such a way that it will recalibrate what matters in our lives. And it goes back to what Martha's sister Mary modeled for us. It begins with being before doing. The power to recalibrate what matters lies in the priority of being with Jesus before doing for Jesus, and allowing His Word to inform the values that will shape our decision making. So here's the keystone habit that will recalibrate what matters in our lives. And it's so simple, it's so fundamental, it's so basic, but it's so essential because it is that powerful in the life of a Jesus follower. Here it is. It's the habit of a daily devotion time. The habit of a daily devotion time. It's the daily rhythm of engaging with the Scriptures, opening them up, reading them, reflecting on them. And as we do, we're asking these questions. We're asking, what am I learning as I read this verse? As I read this passage from Scripture, what is it teaching me? And then we ask, okay, now what do I need to do with this? What do I need to do in response? Like, how am I going to put this into practice so that I'm actually living it out? We ask these questions, and this is something that we program into the rhythm of every day, and I would advocate for the start of every day. And I've talked to people about this over the years, and what I hear pretty commonly is that people struggle with this. They struggle making this a consistent rhythm in their daily lives. And I've talked to pastors who struggle with this, and I know from experience just how challenging it is to cultivate this habit in a daily routine or in our daily lives. And because again, we're all living at a pace where it's just sometimes it feels like, okay, how am I going to make time for this? Where do I find time for this? Where do I squeeze this in? I mean, that seems to be a pretty common excuse. But here's the challenge for me. As I thought about this, years ago, I was really challenged by this. Okay, I never struggle finding time to watch my favorite TV shows, like I've already admitted to you. I never struggle to find time for that. No one has to hold me accountable to making sure that I get my 2 or 3 or sometimes 4 cups of coffee every morning, right? Nobody's checking in on me. Eric, did you get your coffee this morning? It's going to happen. I don't love waking up early, but I will set my alarm at 4:30 a.m. if it means catching a flight so I can go get my daughter. And what I'm saying is that the things that we do value, the things that we do believe are important to us, we tend to make time for those things. And so for us, I mean, if we're Jesus followers, and we say that our relationship with God matters, but we have yet to really cultivate this habit of a daily rhythm of a devotional time with God, then this needs to become a top priority for us. This needs to be a top priority. And so maybe for you, what that looks like is, if this is something that you really need to start or an area where you need to grow, maybe it just looks like starting your day 30 minutes earlier. Just 30 minutes earlier. And that gives you enough time to wake up and pour a cup of coffee if that's your thing, and then just open up the Cypress Meadows daily, right? Spend 10 to 15 minutes where you're able to read that verse and reflect on the devotional by Bob Goff. It's fantastic. If you're not getting those, you should be. It is just a fantastic devotional. But you're reflecting on that every day. You're asking those questions, okay, God, what are you teaching me through this, and how am I going to put this into practice in my daily life? Because when we establish this keystone habit in our lives, what we're doing is recalibrating what matters according to what Jesus is teaching us. And as often as we open the Scriptures, it's like we're sitting at the feet of Jesus, and we're letting His words wash over us, and we're soaking in His teachings. As we open the scriptures, we learn how to spend our time more wisely. We discover the things that Jesus modeled for us in his time management, how he prioritized his own daily devotion time with the Father. We see that he was laser focused on his purpose, what we referred to as our why last week, if you were here for that. But as we open the scriptures, we also learn how to spend our money more wisely. And again, this is going to be another teaching for another time, but Jesus actually had a lot to say on our relationship with money. Because he saw it as so much more than money. He actually saw this as a window into our heart, because he understood that how we spend our money reveals what really matters to us. As we open the scriptures, we learn how to handle our relationships more wisely. Jesus saw people as incredibly important. He shared his life with those who were closest to him. He modeled a life of selflessness and love and grace, and he showed us that people deeply matter to God, and therefore people should matter deeply to his followers as well. From these lessons, we begin to cultivate values that inform our decisions on what matters, and therefore what we choose to give our lives to. And from there, the Spirit of God recalibrates what matters in our hearts and in our minds to help us ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our lives and to help us say yes to less so we can say no to more. Because living a life of less is more is the path toward greater intimacy with God, a life of purpose and a life of calling and a life of fullness and abundance like Jesus talked about. I love what Pastor Craig Rochelle said in a message, one of his messages recently. He said, "Your life is too valuable, your calling is too great, and your God is too good to waste your life on meaningless things." So let's spend the one life that we get and the limited amount of time that we have on the things that truly matter. And let's go to God's Word each and every day to discover the things that truly matter to him and therefore should matter to us. Because this is how we can be sure that our lives are moving in the direction of our intention toward our desired destination. Let me pray for us. Oh, Jesus, would you show us the things that truly matter to you? Would you teach us from your word and by your Spirit those things that should matter to us as well? And would you give us the courage to recalibrate in our own lives and through our own living what truly matters? In Jesus' name, amen. Thanks, Cypress. Have a great week.